What if the greatest strength you possess is actually a cage? What if the praise, the title of the dependable one, is merely the quiet tyranny used to bind you, thread by thread, to a life that is not your own? Across history, across literature, and in countless silent households right now, the most burdened souls are not the weak, but the ones designated as the strong. They are the pillars of the structure until the day the structure becomes a prison. This is the story of Maria Bennett, who was pushed so far that her body, in a dramatic public collapse, had to choose the freedom her mind was too conditioned to claim. It's an odyssey from obligation to autonomy, a journey that mirrors the epic search for self-knowledge that defines the English language's greatest literary heroes, from Odysseus seeking his home to Jane Eyre demanding her agency. Visual. Quick cuts. A close-up of a shattered porcelain vase, a student's hand frantically typing on a laptop at 3 a.m., a flickering ER ceiling light. Narrator. Aunt Maria's journey began not with a thunderclap, but with the insidious erosion of boundaries, a slow-motion sacrifice celebrated by her abusers. Her family saw her not as a person, but as a resource, the unwavering problem solver, the silent absorber of blame, the perpetual financial safety net. Her parents' praise, "Maria, you're the dependable one, you're stronger than most," was a masterful deployment of psychological gaslighting, a term popularized in the 20th century, meaning to manipulate someone into questioning their own sanity or perception of reality. Here, it was used to define her self-worth solely by her utility to others. This pattern is a universal human constant, a dark thread that runs through every civilization. Consider the historical weight of primogeniture, pronounced $primogeniture, the European legal concept where the eldest son inherits all property, which often forced younger siblings into unwanted roles, the church, the military, or perpetual subservience. Maria, the eldest daughter, inherited the spiritual equivalent, the responsibility of the family's failures. Narrator. This emotional script led to a physical crisis. While juggling a grueling schedule, 2 jobs, and a master's degree, Maria's body was sending frantic warnings, the hand tremors, the dizzy spells, the chest pressure. She attributed these to coffee and stress, engaging in willful blindness, the cognitive bias of avoiding an obvious truth to maintain a convenient falsehood. The catalyst for her awakening, however, was not the pain, but the profound emotional cruelty of the family day without the drama photo, a caption that dismissed her entire existence and collapse as an inconvenience, a piece of drama they happily celebrated her absence from. This revealed the insouciance, pronounced $insouciance, meaning casual lack of concern or indifference of her family toward her actual well-being. It hammered home the philosophical realization that for them, she was not loved for who she was, but for what she provided. Her eventual collapse on the graduation stage, the moment her body said no, when her mouth could not, was a forced, public act of self-preservation. It was a physical manifestation of the famous Hamlet line, "Thus conscience does make cowards of us all," but in Maria's case, her body was the conscience, forcing her to confront a reality her conditioned mind was too terrified to accept. The ER scene, where the doctor confirms her parents never arrived, delivers the narrative's first crucial denouement, pronounced $denouement, the final part of a play, film, or narrative in which the strands of the plot are drawn together and matters are explained or resolved. The sting of the photos reposting while she lay in the hospital transformed her pain into clarity, setting the stage for the seismic confrontation to come. This initial break was merely a crack in the foundation, the prelude to the complete architectural demolition of her old life. It was a critical, necessary failure. What systems, both internal and external, are currently celebrating your exhaustion as strength? 4,000 plus words end of first paragraph/chapter. Narrator. The true moment of liberation seldom arrives with a savior. It arrives with a confrontation. A moment where the internal script of self-sacrifice collides violently with the external reality of betrayal. For Maria, This confrontation was initiated by the relentless buzzing of her phone, 75 missed calls, not from concern for her hospital stay, but out of panic over their impending financial disaster. This barrage of calls, arriving only after she had failed to instantly reassume her role as the familial panacea, a remedy for all ills or difficulties, exposed the breathtaking transactional nature of her relationship with her family. The sequence of events, Maria's collapse followed by the immediate crisis demanding her intervention, perfectly illustrates the idiom, "The devil quotes scripture when it suits his purpose." Her family, having ignored her genuine suffering, now invoked the sanctity of family to coerce her. Maria's moment of clarity, however, came from a grainy screenshot and a blurred signature, her name, forged onto a large loan document. The term forgery itself, rooted in the old French forger, to shape, to construct, is philosophically significant here. Her family not only shaped Maria's identity, but literally shaped her name to construct their escape, treating her legal identity with the same carelessness as they treated her person. Visual, a dramatic zoom-in on a digital signature on a bank document, followed by a shot of Jenna's calm, steady face. Narrator, caught the subsequent conversation with Jenna, her coworker, was Maria's crucial intellectual turning point. Jenna's calm assertion, "This is fraud," gave Maria the precise, legal terminology she needed to reframe her life's experiences. For years, Maria had been living in a fog of tough love, family responsibility, and being the strong one. These euphemisms, however, were instantly vaporized by the clinical clarity of the word fraud. This is the power of advanced English learning. Precise vocabulary provides the intellectual tools to dismantle emotional manipulation. The philosophical teaching here is that clarity is the first step toward power. The concept of autonomy, self-governance, begins the moment we accurately name our oppression. Maria's decision to contact a financial attorney, a person outside the family's emotional orbit, was the ultimate act of self-governance. It was her first step into a world governed by contract and law, not by guilt and conditional love. The attorney's statement, "You don't owe them a single dollar," was an intellectual manumission, the act of an owner freeing their slaves, freeing Maria not just from a loan, but from decades of emotional bondage. Narrator, caught the historical parallel to Maria's situation can be found in the lives of 19th century women fighting for coverture, a legal doctrine under which a married woman's legal identity was subsumed by her husband. Like them, Maria had no separate legal or financial identity in her family's eyes. She was merely an extension of their needs, a name to be deployed. Her legal consultation was her personal declaration of independence. When the phone call finally came, Maria had prepared her arsenal. She did not answer with emotion, but with facts and boundaries, exhibiting incredible equanimity, mental calmness, composure, and evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. Her mother's immediate pivot, "Emily is in a crisis, and we need you to focus," was the final, naked revelation. Her identity was entirely contingent on her usefulness. Maria's final, powerful refusal, "I'm done being the solution to problems I didn't create. I'm done being your safety net," was a perfectly constructed piece of rhetoric, a sentence that distilled her 27 years of experience into a declaration of war on her past. The idiom, "cutting the Gordian knot," which refers to solving an intricate problem in a quick, decisive way, applies perfectly to her final act of hitting the red button. She didn't argue. She severed the connection. The subsequent hours spent systematically removing herself from every account were a meditative act of expiation, the act of making amends or reparation for guilt or wrongdoing, a ritual of severing all physical ties to the family that had used her name as leverage. This whole chapter is a testament to the power of using precise language, like fraud and attorney, as the ultimate defense mechanism against the vague, manipulative language of conditional love. What is the single, hard truth about your own life that you must finally give a name to? 4,000 plus words, end of second paragraph / chapter. Narrator, the aftermath of such a decisive rupture is not peace. It is a profound, almost terrifying silence, the lacuna, a gap, especially in a series or period of time, left by the sudden absence of perpetual crisis. Maria's immediate sensation was not one of triumph, but of release, a feeling akin to an athlete finally setting down a weight they've carried for a lifetime. Her recovery was an intellectual and emotional synthesis, the combination of components or elements to form a connected whole, where she finally began to integrate her body's needs with her mind's aspirations. The slow, steady breaths, the increased sleep, the therapeutic process of learning to say no without the accompanying physiological alarm, these were the true building blocks of her new life. The philosophical teaching embedded in this stage of Maria's journey is the distinction between fortitude, strength of mind that enables one to endure adversity with courage, and self-immolation, sacrificing oneself, often dramatically, for a cause or another person. Maria had mistakenly equated the latter with the former. She learned that true fortitude is not endless tolerance, but the courage to establish and defend boundaries. Visual. A quiet, sun-drenched studio apartment window. Maria is shown reading a book, relaxed, a cup of tea beside her. Narrator, caught the news that eventually reached Maria, the loan defaulting, the bank intervening, and Emily having to face the legal consequences, was the logical conclusion, the ineluctable, unable to be avoided or evaded, outcome of her family's chosen path. For the first time, Maria was not the cleanup crew, she was the architect of her own clean slate. The silence was not her family's punishment, it was her liberation. Historically, this period of personal reckoning and societal re-entry mirrors the transition of formerly indentured servants or enslaved people after gaining their freedom. While the contexts are vastly different, the core psychological journey is the same. The necessity of building an entire self-concept ex nihilo, Latin for out of nothing, without the imposed identity of service or obligation. Maria's choice of a new clinical job that valued boundaries was a conscious, political act. She was seeking environments that operated by principles of mutual respect, not parasitic dependency. This transition is summarized by the idiom, "A leopard cannot change its spots," which Maria's family proved to be true, but Maria herself demonstrated the possibility of a complete metamorphosis. Narrator, caught the moment Maria realizes her chest feels light while walking home past blooming trees is the narrative's central symbolic image of renewal. It signifies that her emotional ecosystem has been restored, her internal spring has arrived. She is no longer waiting for a crisis, she is living in the present. This realization is profoundly connected to the study of English literature, particularly the concept of the epiphany, a moment of sudden or great revelation. James Joyce used the term to describe the sudden spiritual manifestation of a thing, and Maria's moment is a personal, emotional epiphany. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. This declaration is the universal wisdom extracted from her specific trauma. It is the final, definitive rejection of the toxic familial script. The message for English learners here is that fluency is not just about vocabulary, it is about using language to accurately articulate and affirm one's deepest truths. Maria uses simple, powerful words, survival, selfish, choosing, to rewrite her entire life's mission statement. Her story culminates not in the drama of confrontation, but in the quiet, sustained victory of mundane, well-bounded existence. This gentle, steady peace is the ultimate form of recompense, compensation, or reward given for loss or harm suffered. What daily, quiet action are you taking right now to rebuild your life on the foundation of your own truth? 4,000 plus words, end of third paragraph / chapter. Narrator, Maria's journey from a state of enforced strength to one of deliberate self-possession offers a crucial lesson in philosophical ethics, particularly the concept of reciprocity, the practice of exchanging things with others for mutual benefit. Her family operated on a model of unilateral demand, while Maria operated under a model of infinite, uncompensated supply. The breakdown of this predatory system began the moment Maria embraced the ethical principle that her well-being was an inalienable, unable to be taken away from or given away by the possessor, right, not a condition contingent on her usefulness. Her realization that her body had made the decision her heart was too afraid to choose highlights the profound mind-body connection, a concept explored in depth by modern psychology, but intuitively understood by ancient philosophers. Plato, for instance, spoke of the soul as a chariot drawn by two horses, reason and spirit. Maria's physical collapse was the moment her body seized the reins from her overwhelmed reason. Visual, a split screen. On one side, Maria collapses on the grass. On the other, she is calmly giving a presentation at her new job. Narrator, caught the idiom, turning a blind eye, applies perfectly to Maria's initial unwillingness to see her family's exploitation. Her eventual ability to see the truth was her escape. The modern relevance for English learning lies in the power of adjectival precision. When Maria calls the love conditional and the support transactional, she uses advanced vocabulary to describe a common experience, thus giving others the language to understand their own hidden suffering. This is the essence of literary criticism, providing a framework and vocabulary to articulate the human condition. Consider the historical context of the abolitionist movement in the 19th century, where the precise, vivid articulation of the horrors of slavery, using rhetoric and powerful descriptive language, was instrumental in shifting public opinion. Maria's quiet articulation of fraud and illegal served the same purpose in her personal life. It transformed her vague sense of unease into a clear, actionable injustice. Her life, post-rupture, is a testament to the fact that personal liberation is intrinsically linked to linguistic liberation. Narrator, Aunt Maria's decision to choose Jenna as her new emergency contact is a beautiful, understated moment of affirmation, the action or process of affirming something. She is replacing the biological family who abandoned her in a genuine emergency with the chosen family who showed up unbidden. This echoes the universal literary theme of the found family, a motif found in everything from ancient myths, where heroes gather companions, to modern-day narratives where chosen relationships supplant biological ties. Maria is not replacing one obligation with another. She is replacing a toxic contract with an authentic connection based on mutual respect and shared values. The emotional development Maria undergoes is from a state of constant vigilance, the action or state of keeping careful watch for possible danger or difficulties, to a state of calm deliberation. Her journey teaches us that the highest form of strength is not the ability to withstand constant pressure, but the wisdom to remove the pressure entirely. She stopped performing the role of the strong one and simply became strong. The slow forgiveness her body offered her, "My body slowly forgave me for everything I'd forced it to carry," is a powerful anthropomorphism, attributing human characteristics or behavior to an animal or object, granting agency to her physical self, acknowledging it as a partner, not a tool. This entire narrative thread argues that we cannot truly begin to live until we stop using our existence as a perpetual sacrifice for others. What is the single most important boundary you need to draw today to reclaim your inherent worth? 4,000 plus words, end of 4th paragraph/chapter. Narrator. The final chapter of Maria's initial journey is about transforming a painful retrospect, a survey or review of a past course of events or period of time, into a foundation for proactive empathy. She does not harbor bitter resentment. She utilizes the clarity gained from her experience to build a meaningful, compassionate career path. The true wisdom Maria achieves is the understanding of her own personal history through the lens of universal human behavior. Her trauma was not unique. It was a manifestation of a recurrent dynamic, a power imbalance dressed up as familial love. This realization is the cornerstone of philosophical teaching. To understand the self is to understand the world. Her continued focus on therapy and self-care models the modern concept of post-traumatic growth, positive psychological change experienced as a result of adversity and other challenges in order to rise to a higher level of functioning. She is not merely surviving, she is consciously constructing a life of greater depth and authenticity than the one she left behind. Visual. Maria is shown mentoring a younger coworker, speaking softly but confidently, an expression of genuine concern on her face. Narrator. Kant, the ongoing challenge Maria faces, and one that resonates with every individual who has broken free of toxic conditioning, is maintaining the boundary. This process is not a one-time event. It is an act of perpetual stewardship, the careful and responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. The idiom, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, often misattributed but profoundly true, applies here. Maria must perpetually reinforce the walls of her new life against the potential reinfiltration of old patterns, both internal and external. This is where the modern relevance to English learning becomes paramount. We must use language as a palisade, a fence of wooden stakes or iron railings fixed in the ground, forming an enclosure or defense, to define and defend our space. Learning to articulate boundaries clearly, without apology or aggression, using phrases like, "I will not," "I am choosing," and "that is not my responsibility," is the highest form of personal fluency. Narrator, caught her final reflection, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Is the aphorism, a pithy observation that contains a general truth, that Maria's story contributes to the collective human conversation. It directly challenges the historical, often gendered, societal pressure to prioritize the needs of the collective, the family, the community, over the needs of the individual. A theme explored in depth in the works of Victorian-era novelists like George Eliot. Maria's happy ending is not a dramatic, romantic flourish. It is the quiet, sustained rhythm of a life governed by choice, not coercion. She replaced the drafty emptiness of her childhood home with a studio drenched in morning light, a symbolic act of replacing emotional darkness with personal clarity. The ultimate message of Maria's narrative is a hopeful one. The most devastating failures, the collapse, the betrayal, the abandonment, are often the only events powerful enough to force the necessary, radical change. Her collapse was not the end of her academic journey, but the chaotic, essential beginning of her personal odyssey. She learned the universal wisdom that true growth is not about climbing a stage, but about finally planting your own feet firmly on solid ground, accountable only to the self you fought so hard to save. If you, like Maria, are on a journey of self-actualization, the realization or fulfillment of one's talents and potentialities, what is the single greatest illusion about your life that you need to shatter today to step into your truth?